A cold wind moved through the empty streets as a young man stood beneath the dim glow of a streetlight, staring at his phone. One message had shattered his peace. His heart raced. His mind spun with fear, anger, and confusion. Every thought pushed him toward a quick decision. Reply now. Defend yourself. Fix everything immediately. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then he remembered something his old mentor once told him. A disturbed mind creates destructive decisions. A calm mind creates powerful ones. So he put the phone away and walked into the silence of the night. Hours later, with a clear mind, he saw the truth. The problem was not as urgent as emotion had made it seem. The message did not deserve his panic. His peace was worth more than his reaction. That night changed his life forever. Most people lose control not because life is difficult, but because their thinking becomes clouded by emotion. Stoicism teaches us that the quality of your life depends on the quality of your thinking. If you want to think clearly and make better decisions, subscribe to this channel and join those who are mastering themselves through timeless Stoic wisdom. Clear thinking is rare because modern life trains the mind to react instead of reflect. Every day, people make decisions while angry, afraid, jealous, impatient, or distracted. Then they suffer the consequences and wonder why life feels chaotic. The Stoics understood something most people never learn. Your emotions are powerful servants but dangerous masters. When emotion controls your thinking, your judgment becomes distorted. Problems appear bigger than they are. Small frustrations feel unbearable. Temporary discomfort feels permanent. This is why Stoicism teaches the discipline of pause. Before responding, pause. Before deciding, pause. Before speaking, pause. That small space between stimulus and response is where wisdom lives. Most regret is born in moments when people refuse to pause. The angry text sent too quickly. The relationship ended in pride. The opportunity rejected out of fear. The words spoken in frustration. A Stoic trains to create distance between emotion and action. That distance creates clarity. And clarity creates better decisions. Subscribe now if you want to train your mind to remain calm when others lose control. The first step to thinking clearly is learning to separate facts from interpretation. This is one of the greatest lessons from Stoicism. Events themselves are neutral. It is your judgment about them that creates suffering. Someone ignores your message. That is a fact. You immediately think, they do not respect me. They are rejecting me. Something is wrong. Those are interpretations. And interpretations create emotional storms. The Stoic mind asks, what do I actually know? This simple question cuts through mental chaos. It removes assumptions. It dissolves unnecessary fear. It returns your mind to reality. Clear thinkers deal with facts, not stories invented by anxiety. When you practice this daily, your decisions become grounded in truth instead of imagination. And truth always leads to better outcomes. If this lesson is opening your mind, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom that transforms the way you think. Another secret to better decision-making is refusing urgency. The world worships speed. Respond quickly. Decide now. Act immediately. But haste is often the enemy of wisdom. Marcus Aurelius taught himself to remain steady and deliberate. He ruled an empire, faced war, betrayal, and uncertainty, yet refused panic. Why? Because urgency clouds judgment. Pressure creates mistakes. Stillness reveals truth. When facing an important decision, ask yourself, does this truly require immediate action? Often, the answer is no. Most rushed decisions are driven by discomfort, not necessity. We rush because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. We act quickly just to escape tension. But wise people tolerate uncertainty long enough for clarity to emerge. Patience sharpens perception. Stillness reveals options panic cannot see. The next time life pressures you to decide instantly, step back. Breathe. Wait. Observe. Clarity comes to the patient mind. Subscribe if you are learning to slow down and think with wisdom. Stoicism also teaches that clear thought requires emotional discipline. An uncontrolled mind cannot reason well. Imagine muddy water. Shake it, and it becomes cloudy. Leave it still, and it clears. Your mind works the same way. Constant stimulation, endless scrolling, emotional drama, and mental noise keep your thoughts muddy. This is why Stoics valued solitude. They understood that silence restores intelligence. You cannot hear wisdom over chaos. Spend time alone. Sit without distraction. Observe your thoughts without judgment. Let the mental noise settle. When the mind becomes still, answers appear naturally. Solutions emerge. Perspective returns. What once seemed overwhelming becomes manageable. The clearest decisions often arrive in silence. The world fears silence because it reveals truth. But Stoics embraced it. And through it, they gained clarity others could never understand. If you want more lessons like this, subscribe and strengthen your mind with Stoic philosophy. Clear thinkers also accept what they cannot control. This may be the most powerful Stoic principle of all. Confusion often comes from obsessing over things beyond your power. Will they like me? Will this succeed? What will happen next? These questions create anxiety because they focus on uncertainty. Stoicism shifts attention back to control. Ask instead, what can I do right now? Can I act with wisdom? Can I remain calm? Can I make the best choice with what I know? This returns power to your hands. You cannot control outcomes. You can only control actions. And when your focus stays there, your mind becomes clear. Better decisions happen naturally. Peace follows. Strength grows. Life becomes simpler. The Stoic does not waste energy fighting reality. He works with it. And that makes him unstoppable. Subscribe now and learn how to focus only on what truly matters. Another key to wise decision-making is long-term thinking. Most bad choices come from short-term emotion. Temporary pleasure. Temporary relief. Temporary comfort. Stoicism teaches you to think beyond the moment. Ask yourself, how will this decision affect my future self? Will tomorrow's version of me thank me for this? This question destroys impulsiveness. It forces wisdom. The Stoics understood that character is built through repeated decisions. Every choice shapes who you become. Each moment is a vote for your future identity. When you think long-term, discipline becomes easier. You stop trading peace for pleasure. You stop sacrificing purpose for comfort. You become intentional. And intentional people create extraordinary lives. The future is built by decisions made today. Choose wisely. Subscribe if you are committed to becoming your strongest future self. Finally, remember this. A clear mind is not something you are born with. It is something you train. Every day offers practice. Pause before reacting. Question your assumptions. Embrace silence. Focus on control. Think long-term. These small habits transform your thinking. And transformed thinking transforms life. The Stoics were not superhuman. They simply mastered their minds. You can do the same. The next time life presents confusion, pressure, or uncertainty, remember the young man beneath the streetlight. He won not by reacting faster. He won by becoming still enough to think clearly. That is true power. And it is available to you right now. If this message helped you, subscribe to the channel and join a growing community of people building clarity, wisdom, and inner strength through Stoicism. Your best decisions, and your best life, begin with a clear mind. Most people believe intelligence alone leads to good decisions. But history proves otherwise. Some of the smartest people ruin their lives because they cannot control their emotions. They know what is right, yet they still choose what destroys their peace. Stoicism teaches that wisdom is not just knowledge. Wisdom is the ability to remain calm enough to use knowledge correctly. A person who panics cannot think clearly. A person controlled by anger cannot judge fairly. A person blinded by desire cannot see consequences. This is why emotional mastery is more valuable than raw intelligence. The Stoics trained themselves daily because they understood the mind can either become a weapon or a prison. And every thought you feed becomes stronger. Feed fear, and fear grows. Feed discipline, and discipline grows. Feed wisdom, and wisdom begins shaping every area of your life. Your mind becomes whatever you repeatedly practice. That is why clear thinking is not luck. It is training. Subscribe to this channel if you are ready to train your mind like a Stoic. One of the greatest enemies of clear thinking is overthinking. Many people confuse overthinking with intelligence. But overthinking is rarely wisdom. It is fear disguised as analysis. The mind keeps spinning because it wants certainty before action. But life rarely gives complete certainty. The Stoics accepted this. They understood that waiting for perfect clarity often leads to paralysis. Instead, they focused on reasonable judgment. They gathered facts. They reflected calmly. Then they acted with courage. Overthinking traps people in endless mental loops. What if this fails? What if they reject me? What if I regret it? These thoughts drain energy without producing progress. A Stoic asks a different question. What is the wisest action I can take right now? That question creates movement. It cuts through fear. It simplifies the mind. Sometimes the best decision is not perfect. It is simply the most reasonable choice available in the present moment. And once made, the Stoic accepts the outcome without endless regret. That is freedom. Subscribe if you are learning to free your mind from overthinking. Another Stoic habit that improves decision-making is journaling. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself constantly. Not for fame. Not for attention. But to understand his own mind. Writing forces clarity. Thoughts that feel overwhelming inside the mind often become simple once written down. Confusion loses power when exposed to paper. Try this. When faced with a difficult decision, write down your fears. Write the facts. Write the possible outcomes. Then ask yourself, what would my wisest self do? This simple practice creates distance from emotion. It helps you see reality more objectively. Most people never slow down long enough to examine their thoughts. They simply react. But Stoics reflected deeply before acting. That reflection protected them from foolish choices. The person who understands their own mind becomes difficult to manipulate. Because clarity creates independence. And independence creates strength. If you value wisdom over impulse, subscribe now for more Stoic teachings. Stoicism also teaches the importance of controlling external influences. Your environment shapes your thinking more than you realize. Negative people create negative thoughts. Constant noise creates mental exhaustion. Endless comparison destroys clarity. If you consume chaos daily, your decisions will reflect chaos. The Stoics guarded their minds carefully. They understood that peace is not accidental. It is protected. Pay attention to what enters your mind. What conversations surround you? What content do you consume? What voices influence your thinking? Your mental diet matters just as much as your physical diet. A mind constantly fed outrage, fear, and distraction cannot think clearly. Protect your inner world. Reduce unnecessary noise. Spend less time seeking opinions from everyone around you. Most people are confused themselves. Why let confused people guide your decisions? A Stoic listens carefully but decides independently. That is true mental strength. Subscribe and join those choosing wisdom over distraction. One powerful Stoic exercise is imagining the consequences before acting. Before making a decision, pause and mentally walk into the future. If you follow this path, where does it lead? Many mistakes could be avoided with this single habit. A moment of anger may feel satisfying now. But where will it lead tomorrow? A reckless decision may feel exciting today. But what consequences will it create later? Stoics practiced foresight constantly. Not to become fearful, but to become wise. They understood that every action carries results. The ability to think ahead separates disciplined people from impulsive people. Most people only think about immediate feelings. Stoics thought about future consequences. This gave them an advantage in every area of life. Relationships, finances, health, career, inner peace. Wise decisions often require temporary discomfort. But foolish decisions create long-term suffering. The disciplined mind accepts short-term pain to avoid future regret. That is maturity. That is Stoicism. And that is how great lives are built. If this mindset resonates with you, subscribe and continue this journey toward mental mastery. There will also be moments when no decision feels perfect. This is part of life. Sometimes every option carries uncertainty. The Stoics accepted this reality instead of resisting it. Perfection is impossible. What matters is acting with reason, integrity, and courage. Do not torture yourself trying to eliminate all risk. No human can predict the future completely. Even the wisest person sometimes fails. But failure does not destroy a Stoic. Because the true victory is not always the outcome. The true victory is becoming someone who acts wisely regardless of the outcome. This removes fear. You stop obsessing over perfection. You focus instead on character. And character creates resilience. A clear mind is not a mind free from problems. It is a mind strong enough to face problems calmly. That is the difference. Anyone can remain peaceful when life is easy. The Stoic remains steady even during chaos. And that calmness becomes a superpower in a world addicted to panic. Subscribe now and become part of a community building calm minds and strong character. One final lesson from Stoicism can completely change your decision-making forever. Do not make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Anger fades. Fear fades. Sadness fades. Excitement fades. But the consequences of decisions often remain. This is why Stoics never trusted intense emotions completely. They waited. They observed. They allowed emotions to settle before acting. Many lives have been damaged by temporary feelings. Relationships destroyed in moments of anger. Dreams abandoned during moments of fear. Opportunities missed because of insecurity. Never allow a passing emotion to control a permanent choice. Feel emotions fully. But do not surrender your judgment to them. Your emotions are visitors. Your values must remain leaders. This mindset alone can save years of regret. And it can protect your peace in ways most people never experience. The Stoic path is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming emotionally disciplined. There is a difference. And that difference changes everything. If you are ready to build a stronger mind, subscribe to this channel and continue learning the timeless wisdom of Stoicism. Your future depends on the decisions you make today. And your decisions depend on the clarity of your mind. Protect that clarity. Train it daily. Because a peaceful mind sees what a distracted mind misses. And a wise mind creates a powerful life. There is another truth Stoicism teaches that many people avoid hearing. Your life changes the moment you take responsibility for your thinking. Most people blame circumstances for their poor decisions. They blame stress. They blame other people. They blame bad luck. But Stoics believe that while you cannot control every event, you can control the way you respond to it. That response shapes your future. Two people can face the same problem and make completely different choices. One becomes bitter. The other becomes wiser. One reacts emotionally. The other responds thoughtfully. The difference is not circumstance. The difference is mindset. Your mind is either your greatest ally or your greatest enemy. And every day, you decide which one it becomes. This realization is powerful because it returns control to you. You are not powerless. You are not trapped. You are not a victim of every emotion that enters your mind. You can pause. You can think. You can choose differently. That is where transformation begins. Subscribe to this channel if you are ready to master your mind instead of being controlled by it. Stoicism also teaches that clear thinking requires courage. Many people know the right decision, but avoid it because it feels uncomfortable. They stay in unhealthy situations. They tolerate disrespect. They delay important actions. They hide from difficult truths. Why? Because fear clouds judgment. Fear whispers, wait longer. Avoid conflict. Stay comfortable. But comfort often destroys growth. The Stoics believed courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting wisely despite fear. Sometimes the clearest decision is also the hardest one. Walking away. Starting over. Speaking honestly. Setting boundaries. Taking responsibility. These actions require strength. But every courageous decision strengthens your character. And strong character creates a strong life. Weak decisions may provide temporary comfort, but they often create long-term pain. Wise decisions may feel difficult now, but they create lasting peace. This is why Stoicism values virtue over comfort. Because comfort fades. Character remains. If you are learning to choose courage over comfort, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom. One reason people struggle to think clearly is because they constantly seek approval. They want everyone to agree with them. Everyone to understand them. Everyone to validate their choices. But this creates confusion. Because the more voices you follow, the harder it becomes to hear your own wisdom. Stoicism teaches independence of mind. Not arrogance. Not stubbornness. But inner stability. The Stoic listens to advice carefully but does not surrender his judgment to public opinion. Why? Because crowds are often emotional. Crowds panic. Crowds follow trends. Crowds react impulsively. Wisdom is rarely found in noise. Some of the best decisions you will ever make may disappoint people. And that is okay. You cannot build a meaningful life while constantly trying to satisfy everyone. A clear mind values truth more than approval. This frees you from unnecessary pressure. You stop living for applause. You start living according to principle. And principles create consistency. Consistency creates confidence. Confidence creates peace. Subscribe now if you want to build unshakable inner confidence through Stoicism. Another powerful Stoic practice is learning from mistakes without becoming trapped by them. Everyone makes poor decisions sometimes. Everyone experiences regret. But most people handle mistakes badly. They replay the past endlessly. They punish themselves mentally. They become stuck in guilt. Stoicism teaches a different approach. Reflect. Learn. Improve. Then move forward. The past cannot be changed. But the lesson can shape your future. A wise person does not waste suffering. Every mistake contains instruction. Every failure contains wisdom. Every difficult experience can strengthen judgment if approached correctly. The Stoics were not obsessed with being perfect. They were obsessed with improving. That mindset removes fear from decision-making. Because even when things go wrong, growth is still possible. And growth creates resilience. The person who learns from mistakes becomes wiser than the person who never. Most people underestimate how much their past influences their present thinking. Every regret, every failure, every embarrassment quietly builds invisible filters in the mind. These filters don't feel like thoughts, they feel like intuition. But in many cases, they are just fear wearing a familiar face. When you try to make a new decision, the mind often reaches backward instead of forward. It asks, "What went wrong last time?" instead of, "What is possible now?" That shift alone can determine whether your life stays stuck or moves forward. To think clearly, you must stop letting old outcomes dictate new possibilities. The past can inform you, but it should not imprison you. A person who is controlled by memory will always struggle with clarity because they are not reacting to reality, they are reacting to echoes of the past. Real clarity begins when you separate experience from expectation. Just because something failed before does not mean it will fail again under different conditions. Another major barrier to better decisions is overthinking. Overthinking is not deep thinking. It is looping thinking. It gives the illusion of progress while keeping you mentally stuck in the same place. You revisit the same options, the same fears, the same scenarios, but nothing changes. True thinking moves forward. It produces direction, not repetition. One way to break overthinking is to reduce the number of options you allow yourself to entertain. Too many choices weaken decision power. When everything is possible, nothing feels right. But when you narrow your focus, clarity increases. The mind works best with constraints. Constraints force priority. Priority creates direction. You also need to understand that not every decision requires perfect confidence. Many people wait until they feel ready. But readiness is often a myth created by fear. Confidence is usually built after action, not before it. You don't think your way into clarity, you act your way into it. Small decisions taken consistently train your mind to trust itself. Another powerful shift is learning to separate urgency from importance. Urgent decisions demand attention immediately, but important decisions shape your future. Most people live in urgency mode. They respond to notifications, pressure, emotions, and external demands. But clarity belongs to those who step back and ask, what actually matters long term? If you want to think clearly, you must stop letting external pressure dictate internal direction. Not every request deserves a response. Not every problem deserves immediate attention. Some things lose power when ignored. Others grow stronger when you pause before responding. Emotional control plays a huge role in decision-making. When emotions are high, intelligence drops. Anger, fear, excitement, and anxiety all distort perception. A decision made in emotional intensity often feels right in the moment but wrong in hindsight. The goal is not to eliminate emotion, but to prevent it from leading. One simple but powerful habit is delaying important decisions when emotionally activated. Even a short pause creates distance. In that distance, logic returns. Perspective returns. You begin to see what the emotion was hiding. Clarity also depends on how honest you are with yourself. Many people don't struggle with thinking, they struggle with honesty. They already know what the right decision is, but they avoid it because it feels uncomfortable. So they create complexity to justify delay. But clarity is often uncomfortable because it removes excuses. A clear mind does not mean a comfortable mind. It means a truthful one. Another important principle is understanding consequences, not just options. Most people evaluate decisions based on immediate gain or loss. But strong thinking evaluates long-term consequences. Every choice has a chain reaction. What seems small today can become significant tomorrow. Thinking clearly means learning to see beyond the first layer of outcome. You should also reduce the influence of external validation in your decisions. When you start making choices based on how others will react, you lose clarity instantly. People's opinions are inconsistent. If you let them guide you, your direction will constantly change. A clear thinker is internally guided, not externally controlled. At this point, it becomes obvious that clear thinking is not about intelligence alone. It is about discipline. Discipline over attention. Discipline over emotion. Discipline over impulse. Without discipline, even a smart mind becomes chaotic. Another powerful tool for clarity is writing. When thoughts stay in your head, they remain fluid and confusing. But when you write them down, they become structured. You begin to see contradictions, assumptions, and gaps in logic. Writing forces the mind to slow down and organize itself. Many life-changing decisions become obvious once they are written out clearly. You also need to accept that uncertainty is part of decision-making. No matter how much you think, you will never eliminate all risk. The goal is not perfect certainty, but intelligent direction. A good decision is not one without risk, it is one where the potential outcome is worth the risk. People who wait for zero risk never move. People who accept calculated risk grow. At the core of all of this is one truth: your life is shaped by the quality of your decisions, and your decisions are shaped by the quality of your thinking. If you improve your thinking, everything else begins to shift naturally. And this is where transformation begins. If this message is helping you see things more clearly, subscribe to the channel. More content like this will continue to help you build mental discipline, emotional control, and decision-making strength so you can stop reacting to life and start directing it. The final part will go deeper into mental models, practical decision frameworks, and how to build long-term clarity so your choices consistently align with the life you actually want. At a deeper level, clear thinking is not just about managing thoughts. It is about training your mind to recognize patterns. Life repeats itself in different forms. The situations change, the faces change, but the patterns often remain the same. People who think clearly are not necessarily reacting to each moment as something new. They are recognizing what kind of situation it is, based on what they have seen before, and responding with awareness instead of confusion. This is where mental models become powerful. A mental model is simply a framework your mind uses to simplify complexity. Instead of seeing every problem as unique, you start grouping them into categories. Emotional decisions, financial decisions, relationship decisions, career decisions. Each category has patterns. When you learn to identify the pattern quickly, your decision becomes faster and more accurate. Without mental models, everything feels overwhelming. With them, complexity becomes manageable. You stop drowning in details and start seeing structure. Another important shift is learning to think in probabilities instead of absolutes. Most people think in extremes. They say something will either work or fail. But real life is rarely that simple. Almost every decision carries a percentage of success and a percentage of risk. Clear thinking means asking, what are the chances this works, and what happens if it doesn't? When you start thinking in probabilities, you become less emotional and more strategic. You stop chasing certainty and start managing risk. This alone can transform how you approach opportunities in life. You also need to understand the danger of decision fatigue. Every decision you make throughout the day drains mental energy. Small decisions like what to eat, what to watch, or what to respond to may seem insignificant, but they accumulate. By the time you reach important decisions, your mind is already tired. That is when poor choices happen. Protecting your mental energy is part of thinking clearly. Reduce unnecessary decisions. Simplify routines. Automate small choices where possible. Save your mental strength for what actually matters. Another powerful truth is that clarity often comes after commitment, not before it. Many people wait for perfect understanding before they move. But clarity is often revealed through action. When you commit to a direction, reality starts giving you feedback. That feedback sharpens your thinking. Inaction keeps you confused. Action creates information. There is also a hidden trap called analysis paralysis. This happens when you believe that thinking more will lead to a better decision, but instead, you get stuck cycling through endless possibilities. At a certain point, more thinking does not improve the decision. It weakens it. Because too much analysis disconnects you from intuition and slows down execution. Clear thinkers know when to stop analyzing and start deciding. Another essential principle is understanding that every decision has an opportunity cost. When you choose one path, you are automatically rejecting another. Many people struggle because they focus only on what they are gaining, not what they are giving up. But clarity comes when you fully accept that choosing one direction means letting go of others. Indecision often comes from unwillingness to lose anything. But growth requires trade-offs. You also need to build trust in your own judgment. If you constantly second-guess yourself, you weaken your ability to think clearly over time. Confidence in decision-making is built through experience, reflection, and learning from outcomes. Even wrong decisions can strengthen clarity if you learn from them properly. The goal is not to never make mistakes. The goal is to make better mistakes each time. At the highest level, clear thinking is about identity. How you see yourself determines how you decide. If you see yourself as someone who reacts, you will live reactively. If you see yourself as someone who thinks before acting, your decisions will reflect that identity. So ask yourself consistently, what kind of thinker am I becoming? Because your life will eventually match that answer. Before this continues further, take a moment to reflect on this. Most of the confusion in life is not external. It is internal. And once you begin organizing your mind, life starts to feel less chaotic, not because the world changes, but because your perception changes. If you are still here, it means this message is resonating with you. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because the next level of this discussion will focus on practical decision frameworks you can apply daily to eliminate confusion and increase confidence in your choices. The final part will bring everything together into a simple system for thinking clearly under pressure, making faster decisions without regret, and building a mindset that stays stable even when life is uncertain. At this stage, clarity is no longer just about thinking better. It becomes about living in a way that protects your thinking. Because even a highly intelligent mind can be disrupted if the environment around it is chaotic. Your thoughts do not exist in isolation. They are shaped by what you consume, who you interact with, and what you allow into your attention. If your attention is constantly being pulled in multiple directions, your thinking will always feel scattered. That is why focus is not just a productivity skill. It is a thinking skill. Whatever you repeatedly expose your mind to eventually becomes the material your decisions are built from. If your input is shallow, your thinking becomes shallow. If your input is focused, your thinking becomes precise. One of the strongest habits you can build for clear thinking is intentional silence. Not just physical silence, but mental silence. Moments where you are not consuming, reacting, or engaging. In those moments, your mind resets. You start hearing your own thoughts more clearly instead of the noise of everything around you. Most people avoid silence because it forces reflection. And reflection sometimes reveals uncomfortable truths. But avoiding clarity does not remove confusion. It only delays it. Another important principle is learning to slow down your reactions in emotionally charged situations. Life will always present moments that trigger you. Someone will say something will not go as planned, or pressure will build unexpectedly. In those moments, your natural instinct is to respond immediately. But immediate response is often emotional response, not intelligent response. Clear thinkers build a habit of delay. Even a few seconds of pause can completely change the quality of a decision. In that pause, emotion settles, logic returns, and perspective expands. You are not trying to eliminate your emotions. You are learning not to be controlled by them. There is also something powerful about separating identity from outcome. Many people tie their self-worth to their decisions. So when they make a wrong choice, they feel like they are a failure. This creates fear, and fear destroys clarity. Because when you are afraid of being wrong, you stop thinking freely. But clear thinking requires psychological safety within yourself. You must be able to say, I can make a wrong decision and still learn from it. That mindset removes pressure. And when pressure is reduced, thinking becomes sharper. Another layer of clarity comes from simplifying your life structure. Complexity in life often creates complexity in thinking. Too many commitments, too many distractions, too many obligations all compete for mental space. When your life is overloaded, your mind reflects that overload. Simplifying your schedule, your environment, and your responsibilities creates mental space. And mental space is where clarity lives. You also need to understand that not every problem requires immediate solving. Some problems solve themselves when you stop feeding them attention. Constant thinking about a problem does not always lead to a solution. Sometimes it only strengthens the emotional weight of the problem. Clear thinkers know when to engage and when to step back. Another powerful idea is learning to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot control. A lot of mental confusion comes from trying to mentally solve things that are outside your influence. When you focus on what you cannot control, your thinking becomes frustrated and scattered. But when you redirect your attention to what you can control, your thinking becomes grounded and effective. This shift alone can drastically reduce mental noise. At a deeper level, clarity is also about honesty with yourself. Many people already know what they need to do, but they avoid it because it is uncomfortable. So instead of facing that discomfort, they overthink. They research more, they delay more, they seek more opinions. Not because they are confused, but because they are avoiding clarity. But truth does not become less true because it is delayed. It only becomes heavier. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is this: if I was completely honest with myself, what would I choose right now? That question removes excuses. It removes external influence. It forces internal truth. Clear thinking is not complicated. It is honest thinking. Now, when you combine all of this together, something important becomes obvious. Better decisions are not made by trying harder. They are made by removing what distorts thinking. Less noise. Less emotional interference. Less urgency. Less external pressure. less mental clutter. Clarity is not something you add. It is something you uncover. And the more you practice this way of thinking, the more natural it becomes. You stop overreacting. You stop overthinking. You stop doubting every step. And slowly your mind becomes a stable place where decisions feel grounded instead of chaotic. If you have watched this far, this is not just content for you anymore. This is a shift in how you approach your life. And if this message has helped you think a little more clearly, subscribe to the channel. This is where you continue building mental discipline, emotional control, and decision-making strength that actually changes how you live every day. Because the truth is simple. Your life will not rise above the quality of your thinking. And the quality of your thinking depends on what you practice consistently. Train your mind to think clearly, and everything else begins to follow. At this point, everything comes down to consistency. Clear thinking is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you maintain through daily mental discipline. Just like physical strength weakens without training, mental clarity weakens without intentional thinking habits. The mind naturally drifts toward noise, distraction, and emotional reactions unless it is repeatedly guided back to structure and awareness. That is why the most powerful thinkers are not the ones who think deeply once in a while, but the ones who think clearly every day, even in small decisions. They do not reserve clarity for big life moments. They practice it in how they respond to messages, how they manage time, how they interpret situations, and how they handle pressure. One of the simplest but most effective habits for maintaining clarity is reviewing your decisions. Not in a self-critical way, but in a learning way. After making important choices, ask yourself, what influenced this decision, what worked well, and what clouded my judgment? Over time, this creates self-awareness. And self-awareness is one of the strongest foundations for better thinking. Without reflection, the mind repeats patterns blindly. With reflection, the mind evolves. Another key principle is reducing mental dependency on external validation. When your thinking depends heavily on what others might think, your clarity becomes fragile. You start adjusting your decisions to avoid criticism instead of pursuing accuracy. But clear thinking requires independence. Not isolation from others, but independence from needing approval to feel confident in your judgment. You must be able to sit with your own decisions without immediately seeking reassurance from others. There is also a deeper layer of clarity that comes from emotional maturity. Emotional maturity is the ability to feel something without immediately acting on it. It is the space between feeling and response. Most poor decisions come from collapsing that space. But when you expand it, you gain control over your actions. You can feel anger without reacting. You can feel fear without stopping. You can feel doubt without freezing. That is where real control begins. Another important truth is that confusion often signals misalignment, not incapability. When something feels constantly confusing, it may not be because you are unable to think clearly, but because you are trying to force yourself into something that does not align with your values, priorities, or direction. Clarity is easier when direction is right. Confusion often appears when you are trying to justify something that does not fit. That is why it is important to regularly check alignment. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it truly matters to me, or because I feel pressured, influenced, or afraid of missing out? That question alone can reset your thinking. You also need to accept that not every decision will feel certain. Many people mistake clarity for certainty. But clarity is not the absence of doubt. It is the ability to move forward despite uncertainty. If you wait for complete certainty, you will delay most important decisions in life. Clear thinkers move with informed confidence, not perfect certainty. At a practical level, one of the strongest ways to improve decision-making is to reduce the number of decisions you make each day. This is why routines are powerful. They eliminate unnecessary thinking. When small things are automated, your mental energy is preserved for bigger, more meaningful decisions. Clarity thrives in simplicity. Another important shift is learning to trust patterns instead of emotions. Emotions change quickly. Patterns remain consistent. If something has repeatedly shown negative outcomes in your life, even if it feels good in the moment, that is a pattern worth paying attention to. Clear thinking involves prioritizing patterns over impulses. And finally, you must understand that clarity is a byproduct of alignment between your thoughts, your values, and your actions. When these three are in conflict, confusion becomes constant. But when they are aligned, decisions become natural. You do not force them. You recognize them. At that point, thinking clearly is no longer something you struggle to do. It becomes your default state. If you have stayed through this entire journey, it means you are serious about improving how you think and how you decide. And that is rare. Most people want better results, but avoid the discipline of better thinking. You are already stepping into a different category. So continue building this mindset. Practice slowing down your reactions. Practice questioning your assumptions. Practice simplifying your choices. Practice observing your thoughts instead of obeying them immediately. And if this message has helped you in any way, subscribe to the channel. More content like this will keep helping you sharpen your thinking, strengthen your decisions, and build a life that feels more intentional and less chaotic. Because in the end, your life will always move in the direction of your strongest thoughts.